Welcome back, guys. Welcome back. Welcome back. So I have a friend who is trying to get to 1,000. He's trying to get to 1,000, and he's had some trouble. And me and him looked at some of his games, kind of on a specific, really his games, and said, hey, these are the mistakes that you've made, whatever. But I was thinking about that tonight, and I wanted to kind of make a little bit of a broader video and kind of give some ideas and some tips on how to get to 1,000. Because, there's a lot of people trying to get to 1,000. 1,000's a significant milestone, and I hit 1,000. I was on cloud 9 for a week, man. I was telling everybody that would listen that I was 1,000 ELO. It's a significant milestone. And I want to just kind of take a little bit of your time here if that's what you're trying to do, and I want to kind of give you some pointers, okay? So I made a list, and we're going to go through it on the things that I think you should work on or keep in mind. And I'm not saying, by opening courses or anything like that, just, there's a lot more advanced stuff. If you're trying to hit 2,000, this list may not be what you're looking for. But if you're trying to hit 1,000, I think that this will help. First of all, play with an increment. If you're playing rapid, 10 minutes. If you're trying to get better, 10 minutes or more with an increment. I say play 15-10. I like 15-10 because it gives you some time to think. And then if you do get in time trouble, which I'm going to touch on in a minute, you've got an increment, right? So, you do have time to think through your moves. And then in the end of the game, you're not just going to run out of time because you just, only have 2 seconds and that's the end of the game, right? So give yourself some time. Play with an increment and, let yourself think through your moves. Really spend time. Use your time. If you get beat, in 14 moves and you've got 16 minutes on the clock, what the fuck are you doing? Use your time. It's your time. Use it. All right, which I took that advice a little too much because I use all of it and get myself in time trouble all the time. But it's better to be in time trouble later in the game than to be completely lost by move 10 with 16 minutes on the clock. So, all right. But the actual chess, number 1, undefended pieces. If you make a move, understand whether or not the piece that you just moved is defended. That needs to register in your head. When you make that move, is your piece on a defended square? You need to know that. When your opponent makes a move, ask yourself, is this piece now defended or not? Okay? That's important. It's not, in the beginning, when I seen somebody else saying this, and I'm like, Jesus Christ, every game, every move, you've got to... Yes. It's not something that you're going to have to take into account and really think about all the time. After a while, it kind of becomes something that you just do. You just take notice. Is this piece defended? Now, sometimes I've messed that up. I'm not perfect. But that is incredibly important to know whether or not a piece is defended or not, because it allows for tactical opportunities. Okay? And I have an example game for you here. Okay? I played, this is earlier. Okay? This is just one example. Okay? Now notice that this piece is undefended. Okay? He castles, and this is a problem because this is undefended. Okay? Which creates an opportunity. You take the pawn. Okay? This is just one, I've dug through my library, and I knew that I played this game earlier, and I wanted to show you guys this one in particular. This is undefended. So when you take, you create a discovery against this piece. But in order to find this move, you need to understand or to recognize that this is undefended. And in case you're wondering, what if, if you take, you recapture, okay? If the knight takes, you capture. And you win a pawn. All right, that's not gonna win you the game, but that's something, okay? So, undefended pieces. When you make a move, make a note in your head. Is this move defended, or is this piece defended or not? Now, I'm not saying don't move a piece to an undefended square, because sometimes moving a piece to an undefended square is the best move, right? This is undefended. Nobody's defending this bishop. But you have to understand what, when your pieces are defended and when they're not. Okay? So really, 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 if you don't take anything else out of this video, this one's important. Is your piece defended? Is your opponent's piece defended? I have another example. Same deal. Okay? Same deal. So this is the position here. Okay? Undefended pieces. What in this position is undefended? Okay? This rook's undefended. Alright? Now my rook, to be fair, is also undefended. Again, I'm not saying don't leave pieces undefended, but you have to be conscious of when they are undefended. Know that it is undefended. You have to have that registering. Okay? So he plays this move. Why is this bad? Because when you take and you recapture with the bishop, now I'm going to take, and you cannot take or you lose your rook. Okay? Undefended pieces. Undefended pieces. That's another, this in particular is why it's really important to make sure that you're getting castled early so that these rooks can see each other. Because if the rooks could see each other, you would take, I would take, and then I'm just down a knight. Right? So, undefended pieces. Really, really, really understand when a piece is defended and when it is not. Again, sometimes the best move is to leave a piece undefended or to move it to an undefended square. But know that it is undefended. I know I'm beating a dead horse, but this is important. It's incredibly important. Alright? So, the next move, the next point is understand and know what checks are available, even if they're bad. Okay, know where they are at. Understand when they're available. Okay, and don't just play it because you can. That's your ace in the hole. I had another game. I wish I had it handy and I could save it, or I wish I had saved it so I could show you. Because I got hit with a fork. I knew that I had the check available. I didn't play it. I got forked. I played the check and then was able to save both my pieces because that check is your ace in the hole. Don't just play it. I watch Chess Boot Camp and this guy drives me crazy with that idea. He'll say, I'm just going to chuck in a check. Why? Save your check, man. But know when they are available, okay? So this is another example of why that's important, okay? So in this position, my opponent plays here. Okay? Now why is this a problem? Because it hangs the pawn. Because I understand that I could get a check on this file. Okay? It's not necessarily that this is kind of a little bit more advanced, but you can't, it's not a check. Okay? It's not a check. But it's a pin. It's the same idea. Know when these are available, okay? So he takes, he gets pinned because he can't put his king in check, right? Because of the knight. So know when these are available. So, fuck. Let me go back. See here, you could have taken, but this lets him walk into the trap. But know when they are available, because these two together, checks and undefended pieces, go together like peanut butter and jelly. If you've got undefended pieces, or if your opponent has undefended pieces, is there a check? Can you hit him with a check? Can you sacrifice a bishop and lure him to a square where you hit him with a knight fork? Maybe. But you have to be open to that. You have to understand that's how these beautiful sacrifices and all these things are happening in all these high-level games, is because they know when there's pieces undefended and they know what checks they have available. So take that into account. Again, this list ain't going to get you to 2,500. You're not going to be GM watching me. My dumb ass is lucky to get you to 1,000. But understand when you have checks available. Where they are, you should always be thinking about them. Do I have a check? Is there a check? Even if it's like, you sack your queen. Okay, well maybe that's the best move on the board, but know that you have it because it's the most forcing move in the game. Okay, so another one is analyze your games. Okay, analyze your games, and there's so much information in a game analysis. It's hard to take everything away. You know, you're not going to. You know, different lines, branching off from each move, different variations in the opening. There's so much, and you're never going to take all that with you. But first of all, before I go any further, chess.com makes you pay for that. You get one free analysis a day. But if you take the time to create a Lichess account, Lichess is free. Lichess. It's completely free. You could play on chess.com and then go to Lichess and import a game onto Lichess. And once you've done that, then you can do your analysis there, and it doesn't cost a penny. Okay? So Lichess lets you do it for free. But when you're doing your analysis, okay, again, you're not going to take everything away from your analysis. But the way that I like to approach my analysis, what I like to do is I want to analyze my games, and I want to see who messed up first. Who messed up first? And why was it a mistake? And what could you have done better? What was the right move? So if you made a mistake in the opening, know or learn from your analysis why that was a mistake and what was the correct move. Because now you're talking about a very small sample. You went wrong on move 3. Well, you do your analysis. You learn, hey, on move 3, I moved this knight, but then I walked in to an immediate pawn push and had to step backwards, and now my opponent has the full center, right? Well, now you know, hey, this pawn move, this knight move is bad. The correct move here is to fianchetto your bishop, whatever it is. Take that home with you. Learn that one little piece of information and stick that in your pocket, okay? So do the analysis, see where you went wrong or whoever went wrong, and learn from it. And that's how you increase your opening knowledge. Now, if you can go deeper, and you should be doing a full analysis and understanding everything. But if you take something away from your analysis, I think that you should be saying, who fucked up first? Was it me? Was it my opponent? What could we have done better? And if it was your opponent that made the mistake, did you punish it correctly? Understanding your opening is important, and that will help you tremendously. Okay? Which, look, I'll jump into the next one here. I'm going to skip around on my list. Don't play a gambit. Okay? You can play whatever you want. If you want to play gambits, play them. But I don't think you should be playing gambits. Giving away material and creating a messy situation, I don't like it. I don't like it. If you're trying to improve, you could play gambits, but I'm going to say just stick to solid chess. Learn the Italian. Learn the London. The Black Mardimer gambit or the whatever. If you give away a pawn, the Queen's gambit's kind of the exception. But if your opponent knows what they're doing, now you're just down a pawn. You give away 2 pawns, now you're down 2 pawns. If your opponent knows how to play against that, which it creates a whole bunch of chaos. And if you see it consistently, maybe you're better at it. But if your opponent also knows it, maybe you don't throw them off and now you're just down 2 pawns. I say stick with the basics and play solid chess. The Ruy Lopez, the Spanish, the London, something like that. Learn that and stick with it. And you get a little better. Maybe you want to mix that in, or maybe mix it in occasionally. But I would stay away from it. You play whatever you want, but I'm going to caution against it. I'm just going to caution you against it. Okay. Make a priority of protecting your pawn structure. Prioritize it. So, what I mean by that is, if you lose a pawn, right? Like, if you lose a pawn, losing this pawn here breaks these 2 pawns apart, right? So if you lose your B pawn, these pawns are alone. They're completely by themselves. They can't help each other. Okay, they're not going to be able to walk down the board together and support one another. So you want to prioritize your pawn structure. If you are going to lose a pawn, it's better to lose this pawn or this pawn so that these guys work together. If you lose this pawn, now you have two pawns by themselves and they're isolated. The same thing is true about allowing your pawns to be doubled. So if you look at a position and you say, all right, I could jump my knight into this hole. I can jump my knight in here. Can your opponent take that knight, though, and then double your pawns? Now, again, this is kind of a general overview, because sometimes that's not the end of the world because you're going to double the pawns and the F-file opens and now there's pressure on the king. Okay, that's a different story. But generally speaking, you do not want your pawns to be doubled. And you definitely don't want them to be doubled and isolated. And you definitely don't want them to be by themselves and be isolated. Because at least if they're doubled, like if you have two pawns here, you're controlling all these squares, so at least you get that out of some double isolated pawns. But with this, that sucks. You're not controlling shit here, so you definitely want to try to make sure that your pawn structure survives. And, when I remember being 700 and 800, and it wasn't that long ago, and I didn't prioritize that. Nobody told me, I'm not that smart. I'm not some kind of chess genius or whatever, I had to learn everything from YouTube videos and get my ass kicked, man. I've learned a lot of hard lessons. You can listen to somebody tell you all this stuff, but until you get your ass beat by something, it's hard to get it to stick in your mind. So, I played a lot, and I got beat up. My pawn structure sucked, and then I would get to an end game, and I would get crushed. But now, and, well, in particular, when I was 800, I was watching, like, Chess Bruh or somebody, and they were talking about the significance of your pawn structure. And I watched this video that explained it. And maybe it wasn't Chess Bruh. I can't remember who it was. But anyway, they talked about it and how that, doubled pawns hurts you going into an endgame. Or well, anywhere really, there's sometimes that they're good, because you create open files and so on, and maybe sometimes that's okay. But generally speaking, you want to protect them. And when I was 800 and I was trying to make this push, that really, really helped me out a lot. And my ELO really started to grow after that. That was really probably the first big thing. That was the second biggest thing. The first one was learning the London, and that really helped me a lot. But number two was prioritizing my pawn structure surviving the game as intact as I could make it. And conversely, if you have the opportunity to damage your opponent's structure, you should. You should. That's a benefit for you because, this game isn't about pinning a queen to a king, right? Sometimes you're going to get that. But you want to create problems and weaknesses and poke holes in their defenses. And if you're able to create enough, especially when you get to an endgame and your pawns are scattered, right? It's hard for them to protect all that. Meanwhile, if your pawn structure is intact, it's easy for you to walk them up together and get yourself a passed pawn and promote that passed pawn. Which I don't know if I mentioned, but I'm going to go back into it. Or no, I haven't mentioned this. I skipped over it. But that leads a perfect segue into it. You want to push your passed pawns in an endgame. There's a lot of analysis that you could do and a lot of courses you could study and a lot to understand about endgames. It looks like an endgame is a simplified version of the game. Like you look at it and it's like, oh, okay, I can, there's only 4 pawns and we both have a rook. Nothing else. That's not the case. It's very deep. There's a lot you can learn about it. But the big thing that if you want to go into that, go into that. Go on, get yourself a course, and I'm not going to say you're wrong for doing it. But if you're at 800, you're at 900, and you're trying to get there, you're trying to hit that 1,000 ELO mark, push your passed pawns in an end game. I played a game earlier. I wish I had it handy here and I would show you. But the pressure that you put on your opponent by pushing those pawns is incredible. Because if you get a pawn up here, now you've got a queen. And if you're in a situation where you both have a knight, and now, boom, I have a queen, uh-oh, spaghetti-o, as Hikaru would say, right? You're in trouble. You're going to lose the game. So push the passed pawns. And also, like the other day, I played a game, and it was completely balanced going into the end game. Completely balanced. And I had a pawn majority on one side of the board. This is kind of a more advanced thing, pawn majorities and stuff. But I had a pawn majority, and I was able to make a passed pawn on the outside of the board. And he did not try to push his pawns. He was trying to move around and all this. And I just pushed my pawn. I just pushed, which I have a video on end games if you'd like to see it, and kind of this idea in motion. But I pushed the passed pawn until the end of the board, and then he ended up having to sacrifice the rook for the pawn. And now I'm just up a rook in an end game, and he had a +1 majority on the other side of the board, but I got a rook. So what are you going to do about it? So I won the game. So really take that into heart. Like I said, there's a lot of complexities in an end game, and one king move could completely throw you off. But generally speaking, you want to push your passed pawns. You want to push them. And that's something that you could be thinking about throughout the game. If you're able to create a passed pawn, that's an asset. And the more that the pieces get traded off and the deeper you get into the game, that passed pawn is going to become a big problem for your opponent. It's a big problem, especially an outside passed pawn. If you've got a pawn, like if this pawn was to get here and there's nothing opposing it, that's a problem. That's a problem. So push them. Push those passed pawns, man, okay? And the last one, time management. And I've got a lot myself to learn about time management. I really do. Let me see if I can find a game of mine really quick to show you guys. Just in an end game here. Did this go to an end game? It did, yeah. So this goes to an end game. All right, so for example, right, if this isn't really a good example. Anyway, if you're in an end game, or not necessarily in an end game, but if you're playing, like I said in the very beginning, when you have an increment, okay, when you make a move, you're going to get some time back. So when you start getting into low time territory, you got 20 seconds, 15 seconds, your clock's red, okay, make a mental note to yourself that you have this safe move. Whether that's, pushing your H pawn up one, right? Your pawn's here, you could push that one time, one square. That move's not going to change the position drastically, and it's going to give you a fresh 10 seconds, okay? And when your opponent moves, take that opportunity to, is there another safe move that I have? Do I have another safe move? Use the opportunity of them thinking to find another safe burner move to add a little bit of time back to your clock. So when you get low on time, use their time to think, and you want that safe move in your pocket. So you get down to 6 seconds, you have a 10-second increment, play that safe move. You don't see anything, you can't really find a good move, but while he's thinking, you've thought of another safe move. Maybe you push this pawn, right? You got a 10-second increment. Well, now you've went from 6 seconds to 26 seconds. And that's a big difference. That's a big difference. So knowing those safe moves that you can play without changing the balance. Now, again, all this is kind of subject to, it's not I'm not the world's authority on any of this, okay? But as a general rule, like when you're in a really complicated situation, maybe there's no safe moves. Maybe a blunder checkmate. It happens. It happens. But try to find those and put them in your pocket, those safe moves. And that way when you do get low on time, because God knows I stay low on time. I stay low on time, and I never really mentioned this in my videos, but I do this. I know when my clock is ticking and I'm down to 3 seconds, I know that I can push that fucking H pawn. I know that. Like, I am very well aware that I have that H-pawn push and I'm going to get a fresh 10 seconds. Now, maybe I fucking blunder my queen the next, on the next move, but at least I had that H-pawn push and it saved me from running out on time. And if I lost because I made a bad move later, that's on me. But I do try to find those moves to have a little bit of time in my pocket. Anyway, that's really all I have. I don't want to go into depth on a lot of these, other things, because I think that, 1,000, I mean, like I said, you don't need to know 10 moves of theory in the Knight or Sicilian. You don't need to know, crazy in-depth, the Philidor or Lucina position in game, blah, blah, blah. You don't need to know all that, okay? To get to 1,000, do the things I said. Play with an increment. Watch your undefended pieces. Analyze your games. Know where the checks are for you and for your opponent. I say don't play the gambits. If you want to play them, okay, but I would really suggest that you play, solid chess. Prioritize keeping your pawn structure intact, because you will thank me later when you get in an endgame and your pawns are connected instead of being scattered all over the board. It will help your endgame tremendously to have those pawns connected. It really makes a big difference. And then the time management. Use your time. You definitely use it. Like I said earlier in the video, don't get blown off the board in 14 moves and then, you've got more time on the clock than you started with, but now you've lost your queen. If you're playing rapid, use your time to play, right? If you want to play blitz, go play blitz. But if you're playing rapid, slow down, think through your moves, and use your time. But once you get to the end, stick those safe moves in your pocket. Have them ready. So that way when you're in panic mode and you can't find a move that you're not, oh shit, you grab your queen, you swing it over, and now it gets taken by a bishop that you didn't see. The H-pawn, the A-pawn. Maybe you slide your king over one, right? Maybe it's just a bishop, one move on the diagonal, something like that. Safe moves that don't change the position that much, that buy you a little bit more time. That's what you're looking for, and have those ready, okay? So anyway, I think that's all that I have for you guys, man. If you like this, like, comment, subscribe, all the things, and I'll see you guys in the next video, and good luck to anybody out there watching this that's trying to get to 1,000. Best of luck. If you get there, let me know in the comments. Not because I'm trying to drive content or views to my content. I don't get paid for this shit. Nobody's paying me anything. But I do want to say that the most rewarding thing to me out of doing all this is when you guys do learn something from me. And I really do, like hearing that kind of stuff. So if you do get to 1,000 and you took any of this with you, even if this is 6 months, a year from now, I would like to hear from you and know that you guys learned a little something from me and took that home with you. Okay? So anyway, you guys have a good day. See y'all in the next video. See you guys.